What's happening? We made it.
Ooh,
We're a
we
little
did.
late. It's on my end. I got a new computer, so you know.
That's okay. I was sweating it too because I couldn't get the link because I've reached the capacity of my cloud storage. So I had to buy more cloud storage to get the link.
Yeah, I got a whole new setup here, so I was like, "Oh, I got it. It's no problem because everything else is logging in just fine. Like the transfer over was fine, everything, but no,
Nice.
not here. Didn't save anything. I'm like, oh my gosh, and I didn't know I didn't have all the information. So here we are, but we made
What'd
it.
you get?
I got a gaming computer actually. It's all nice.
Ooh,
Yeah.
like Alienware or something?
No, my friends built it for. I bought all the pieces and they put it together. I mean, it's like a
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
big boy. So I'm pretty excited about
Nice.
it. Because I'm a nerd that way. So I play the
Aren't we
video
all?
games.
Well, I don't know about everybody, but me too.
Yeah. So I've always wanted one, and now it's like I had this little tiny thing and now I have this big old monitor. It's pretty neat. It's actually kind of weird, but I'm still adjusting. But
Yeah, but like anything, you'll get used to it.
right. And then I'll have to, then I can never go back now because this thing's so huge. It's so big. Anyway, you guys can't see what I'm looking at, but nonetheless, that's my update. That's all I've
Hell
been
yeah.
doing. Is playing video
Awesome.
games
I
with
love that
my
I've
life.
done enough of these episodes now that I know exactly how much time based on the intro music I have to go get another beer.
You did time that really well, actually. I did see that. I'm like, oh, there he goes. And he's back.
It's like
Just in time.
I got time.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I just have to go. I have to run upstairs. I don't think I can make it. Maybe. Ooh, that'd be nice. I get some steps in on my watch for sure. Plug that in. Well, cool. Let's get into it since we're already late. We're bringing Matt Hanson from Crooked Pigs in. So if you guys have ever listened to
Yes.
my former podcast, the Pitmasters podcast, you're very well familiar with Matt, but we're going to pretend like you don't. And we'll do all the introductions and talk about all the good stuff. So really good cook. One of my favorite cooks, I think in the West, one of the better ones in the whole circuit. So especially in the West, not as good as me though. Come on, let's be
Well,
real.
I'll be.
But he might have something else to say about that. But let's bring him on stage, everyone. Matt Hanson of Crooked Pigs.
How you guys doing?
What's going on, man?
Hey, Matt.
Rusty, you can defend that statement out on the circuit here this year if you'd like.
I could. No, no.
There's one in your hometown, man. We can
I'm busy.
we can light the drums up and see if you can put your money where your mouth is, man.
That depends if you're coming, if I can go or not. I might be busy that day. Depends.
I'm sure you'll be busy.
Yeah. Like Matt's going, shoot. Oh, really? I have a beard appointment that day. But Matt and I go way back, like I said in the intro there. If you guys have ever, listened to my former podcast, you know a lot about Matt. So we're going to pretend like we don't know anything about you. So let's start from the beginning, Matt, like we do every time.
Okay.
How did you get into competition barbecue?
Like most people, I think nowadays, I caught the first season of Pitmasters and it lit a fire under me and literally. I got a Weber kettle and a Traeger, started cooking stuff in my backyard, and they set up a comp in my hometown here, Boise, Idaho, and I cooked it, and I don't know if what happened, the stars aligned, and we won the first one out. And so I got back when you had to qualify for the World Foods to get a golden ticket in Vegas. We qualified for that. They gave us gas money. I didn't have anything besides Weber kettle and a Traeger. I borrowed some other pellet grills, to cook. And I had to get all the stuff, man. I was driving a Subaru racing bikes. I was a cyclist. And that's
what do you ride?
I don't anymore. Well, I did just buy a new bike this year. My cousin, who's cooking barbecue with me, tried to get me riding again. What did I buy? I bought a Scott with some 11 speed on, nothing real fancy. I used to ride all the DI2 stuff, and I was the Northwest Collegiate Conference champion when I was in law school, and now I'm 50 pounds heavier and slow. But anyway,
it does it, man. A fellow cyclist.
Are you? Cool. Yeah, it's fun, man. It's definitely a big commitment. I really race. There's a big criterium in Boise, Idaho, called the Twilight Criterium.
Yeah.
All the pros from all over the country come out, and raced that the last time I raced it, and I hung up my bike the day after and just quit riding because I was tired of it. It was a big commitment. I was riding, 4 hours every Saturday and Sunday and a few hours every night, and I was just tired of it and ready to do barbecue. And so I still had the competitive drive, and I moved it over to barbecue. But we went down to the World Foods. My wife, I think she came with me. She was really one of my teammates from the beginning, and she thought that I had some kind of magic touch or something, because she cried when we finished like 18th at the World Foods, and thought that we were going to win the thing. And, maybe a little secretly, I kind of thought maybe I was something too, but boy, we sure learned the hard way that I don't know what the hell I was doing. It took us, another 5 or 6 years to get another GC. But I've never done a class, I've self-taught entirely. And, that's how you used to do it back in the day. And it's, there were a couple classes out there, but not like there are now. And I probably should have spent the money and the time to go do one, because I was banging my head against the wall for a long time on the circuit, getting my ass kicked and wasting money to figure out how to waste a little less money.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm an advocate for classes 100% for sure. And by the way, I love whatever the opposite of cyclist is what I am. So I'm basically you now. I think that's what it is. Whatever it is, I met Hanson current.
Yes.
So not spending thousands of dollars on kids' toys.
On bicycles and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, I used to race criteriums too. And then when I got married, my wife was like, yeah, so if you keep like breaking stuff,
Right.
I'm not taking care of you. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I've lost a lot of skin on my body, that's for sure.
Like no more broken collarbones.
Yeah.
Jesus. So wait, you break stuff and you got to go work out? This sounds awful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's alarmingly dangerous to race criteriums.
Yeah, and it's addictive though, man.
It really is.
It's really, especially if you can figure out how to start finishing towards the front, man. It's just, and it's like the barbecue thing in a lot of respects. I mean, there's just an itch you can never scratch. No matter how many times you win or how well you do or how fast you are, there's always another level, man. It's just, yeah. You can always upgrade your parts and your get up and your transportation there and your wheels and all the nonsense. And there's always somewhere to spend your money.
That is funny. I've never really thought of it that way, but other than the physical fitness aspect of it, like the money and time commitment and all of that stuff and like gadgetry, like definitely overlaps between the two.
Oh yeah. Power meters and all kinds of software programs and coaches you can hire and all. It's all the same. Yeah, you can nerd out on that stuff. To be honest with you, I dropped that towards the last few years of my cycling. I quit doing power meters. I quit doing tracking my workouts. I just started riding more, spending the time I was spending on that stuff riding, and I kind of let that bleed over. After a while in my barbecue, I dropped all the thermometer probes. I dropped all the timers. I dropped a whole lot of the time lines. Even I just have start times on most of my stuff, and I think that it depends on your personality, but I think for my personality, just having the time in cooking in the past to know what I got to do and not overthinking it. Every cook's different anyway. We're cooking in different places, different altitudes, different temperatures, different humidity, different meat. And it's never the same anyway. I don't know why anybody tries to force it into that, outline when it's never going to fit. If you just kind of have a generic starting place, I feel better cooking that way than I ever did when I was logging it all and trying to whatever.
I'm glad you tied it back into barbecue before this just devolved into a cycling
podcast.
For like the two of us that competitively ride bikes.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because I love riding bikes. Actually, it's funny enough. It's when I, of course, growing up in the 80s and stuff, that's all you did. We'd literally be on our bikes the second we woke up in the morning in the summer, and we were riding them around all day. I mean, we logged tens and tens and tens of miles, like a day, 100 miles even sometimes, just riding bikes to and fro, and it was the whole thing. I still really enjoy it, but man, I don't know even where to start anymore. There's all sorts of different kinds of crap. So,
there's a huge community down in Salt Lake. We got to get you started, Rusty.
oh, I know, like all the hipsters riding around the fixies. I don't know if that's still a thing, but that's what's
very
downtown
much
for
so.
a while.
Good place to start.
A fixie? Heck no. I have to have something I can like. Actually, no.
You gotta be able to stop pedaling every few minutes.
I was gonna say,
bike
you
is
start
more
off on a
magic.
bike with no brakes that you can't stop pedaling.
Yeah.
Hell no.
Yeah, we
Anyway.
can get you a single speed.
So barbecue, since this isn't the right
Is that
on.
what this podcast is about?
Yeah. Sorry. Sorry, guys.
No, I derailed this thing.
I hate to be that guy. I know we're having so much fun talking about bikes, but there's and by the way, I just wanted to be very clear. You two are very literally the only two people in this entire community interested in this. I want you to know.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm well aware.
Barbecue's like the blob that just sucks you up and goes, get fat. Let's go. So, and here we are, all of us. So into barbecue, it takes you a long time to get good at what you're doing. And of course, like I say, I always recommend classes. It's always the best route to go.
For sure.
Because, I mean, 5 years is a long time to start winning a GC. I mean, to be able to maintain that long, especially now with how much things cost. I don't understand how people don't take classes. It's really dumb. So, I mean, obviously you mentioned you would take a class going back if you could. I mean, would you agree? I mean, like taking even, let's say $1,000 class would be worth it for you going back in time?
Oh, if we're just talking the expense, it's well worth it. I mean, I remember when you came on the circuit and you just, I mean, hit one class, Brad and Tim's class, and man, you just hit the ground running, and you were getting right up there neck and neck with us in a couple of comps, and that took a long time to figure out. And the thing is, I just remember that. I remember the days when I'd show up to a big comp and I'd cook my heart out, and I'd have a cook that was as good as I thought I could ever cook. And I thought, man, if that doesn't win us something, I don't know what will. And the lesson I learned is that I just didn't know what would, because it wouldn't. And I'd say, well, what more could I do? I hit all my marks. I did it. It was the best I'd ever done. And I thought I just didn't know what I was looking for. And how do you? How would you? I mean, you know what you like, especially out here where you and I live, Rusty, out in this part of the country. There's just not enough. I mean, there's not enough barbecue restaurants. There's not enough competition community to really have an opportunity to taste guys' stuff and to know what people are. And back then, you couldn't see turn-in boxes on social media. You didn't know what layouts looked like. You didn't know what.
Sure.
So it was just really hard. And so why not? I mean, I probably told you this before in a podcast, but I think barbecue feels without a class feels like shooting at a moving target in the dark, and you missed. You don't know which direction you missed, so you're going to aim a little in one direction, but you don't know if you're heading in the right direction. It's just really hard, man. And so I'd do a class if I were starting out. I mean, I don't even know if I'd do a comp without doing a class first nowadays.
Yeah. I think that analogy is right, but instead of saying taking a shot in the dark, each bullet is $1,200.
Right, minimum, man. It depends on how far you have to drive and how big your rig is. I guess when you're starting out, you're not pulling a 50-footer, but
nope.
Yeah,
and it's such a thing. I know that it's kind of the norm. I still harp on it a lot because I do find people from time to time going, the classes are too expensive. I don't want to do this, and man, I can't stress how important it is. And I know it's more and more people are doing it. It's more and more of the norm, which is great. Makes things harder for, but I think it's fun, because we're all competitive, obviously. And so that's one of the biggest reasons. So the more competition, the better. But if you are out there and you're in competition barbecue and you have not taken a class, I strongly suggest doing it right now. And if it's not in your budget, I don't know what the hell you're doing. You're spending money, like you said, wastely.
I still haven't taken one. I need to. I want to.
Really?
I'm going to try to catch LC or somebody.
Yeah. Well, like online they have all sorts of stuff.
I've done a little of that. To be fair, I've done the Brad's deal. What's it called now? I've got a membership.
Barbecue. Is it called the Barbecue League? Is that right?
Barbecue League. That's right.
Barbecue League.
I've done that, but I've never done it in person. And I really do want to do it in person because I was talking to Smitty about this down in Phoenix. I mean, I'd like to catch his next class. And he told me, he shot me the link to his online stuff. And I just said, I just feel like there's something else that you can pick up in person that's just not on that video necessarily. And I don't know I don't know what I would take from a class. I know I would take a lot of things, but I don't think it's probably recipes at this point. I think it's little, tricks and techniques and little things you just never thought of. And, just even talking from guys in the community, I pick those things up from time to time. We share them back and forth and, just little tiny equipment things and who knows what.
Well, I took a copious amount of notes for all the classes I've taken. I've taken 3 now from the top guy, Smitty included. And I write all these notes, and it's just funny. And this is why the videos work so well too, is that you will cook and, okay, well, I'm going to do Smitty's chicken and I'm going to do this recipe. I'm going to change this and that. And you're like, okay, cool. And you're doing it and you're feeling good. And then you're like, oh, wait, I need to look at this. What did he do there? And all of a sudden you start reading it. What's that? I totally forgot about that, And then you're like, oh yeah, I remember. And you try that. And it's just, you're always forgetting stuff, even though you've read it, you've seen it. There's stuff that just doesn't, I don't know, for some reason doesn't like pop out at you. So that's the cool thing about a video is you can rewatch it, but you're right. Like being there and tasting it and the texture and stuff, I think was the most helpful. I think for me starting out was very important to be there live, but, not being a judge at the time, or I was, but if you're not, it's difficult to understand what people are looking for. And it's cool because now I can watch those videos of Brad Laniger and Tim Shear and Jerry and all those guys I've taken classes for. And when they do videos, I can see it and I know, I don't need to taste it. I can get some tips that I need from them. So I think live, you're right, is I think it's beneficial a little bit more, especially when you're starting out. If you're not like just starting out, you'll probably be okay. I think it's better to go, digital. So you can always have that there for you when you need it. But 5 years in, and all of a sudden you just start kicking, and then did it just start? Oh, it just clicked in, and that was it, and you started rocking and rolling.
Well, I brought my brother on board. I mean, he kind of cooked with me a little bit when we were down in Salt Lake or wherever. Or if he could make it to a comp, he'd come show up and help. But he's a classically trained chef, so he's got chops in the kitchen. You've had him on your podcast before, so I brought him on, and he hadn't had quite as much experience in the circuit as I had, so he wasn't really taking any categories by himself. He was just kind of helping me, but he bought in real quick, and then we started splitting things up a little, and that allowed us each to focus a little more on each meat. And we were really he lives in Salt Lake, I live here in Boise, and so we don't see each other as often as we'd like, but we would talk on the phone about it a lot, and when we were talking back and forth, it really just kind of forced us in a way to really re-examine what it was we were doing, start thinking about what other people were doing, and start brainstorming ideas and looking for ways to improve. Because that's all we had, man. We didn't have any other ways at the time to figure out what it was, but we just it just felt like every couple of comps we just kind of like unlock a new gear or a new level, and we'd realize, oh, that's what guys are doing. And I started, initially, like I didn't have, growing up in Boise, Idaho, there wasn't any place to buy a smoker when I was a kid or a young adult, and the pellet grills hit the scene, and I thought that was the coolest thing since sliced bread, and it was. But I quickly learned that maybe pellet grills weren't necessarily the best way to cook. Not knocking them at all, and in fact, I'm thinking about moving some of my meats back. But I got a Weber Smoky Mountain because that was about all I had access to locally, and I wasn't sure I wanted to order some big fancy thing when I didn't know how to manage fire. So I got that, and I started trying to cook on that, and started working with Jason Stuckey, who doesn't cook anymore, but he's down in Salt Lake, Team America. He was a good cook on the circuit for a lot of years, and he kind of got me cooking my brisket on that Weber Smoky Mountain. Although he said I should get a can, but that's what I had, so I was cooking it on that, and finally thought it was good enough to take it to a comp, and so we did, and got a first place brisket that first time out cooking over charcoal. And that really just, again, opened another level, unlocked a new gear. And now I'm cooking all my meats on cans. I never thought I'd say that. I never thought I'd be cooking them all on live fire. And I was running like Stoker fans and stuff back in the day because I didn't know how to manage a fire. And Weber Smoky Mountains are a lot harder to manage than than, you know, a gateway or whatever. So, so I was running that stuff, and it was overcomplicated, and I had to have power and all that stuff. And I quickly moved away from that stuff. But I did realize there was another thing other than just pellet grill stuff. And I knew there was, but it was always just, I never had a truck or trailer to haul all the stuff in, haul a big stick burner behind or whatever. And so the cans worked well for us. Cooking over charcoal worked well. It's intimidating to cook over a live fire if you've never done any of that before. But man, the cans make it easy. But I mean, I can manage anything now, and it's just really not as hard as you think it is once you understand the concepts. And I think that helped a lot. And so we started traveling around to cook. I mean, we have to travel around to cook. I don't have a comp within 5 or 6 hours of my house. That's the closest. Cool. So, I mean, I'm routinely 8 to 10 hours for any comp I go to. So I don't get that many in a year. Maybe 8 or 10 if I'm lucky, really, because otherwise I'm traveling 20 hours to get to a comp. So I have to make them worth it. But we started doing before, let's see, like 2016, 2017, Dave and I, my brother, started really hitting the circuit hard, and we were cooking our tails off and just really feeling like we'd learned some new things. We benefited from some other teams that were helping us out a little, and we knew we were cooking well. We headed down to one of Arley's comps in Grand Junction, and we just come off a cook in southern Utah that we thought was our best cook yet, and we actually sat on our hands through awards, man, not a single call. But we knew it was the best cook we'd had. It was a first-year comp down there. We knew we kind of got screwed at awards because our stuff was just so good. And the next week, we left our gear down in southern Utah and came back down and drove over to Grand Junction. And, yeah, we won that thing. And that was our next big GC win after the first one, which was really a fluke looking back. And we knew we were cooking good. We knew we had something special. I still got the Grand Junction pictures up on my Instagram page, and I mean, those boxes look as good as they've ever looked. The meat, I just knew it was good. I knew it was good. We went to awards and we won, and we were off, you know, to the races. And then came COVID, so that was kind of just got to throw us for a little loop. But everybody, and you know, I kind of leveled the playing field a little, I think.
Yeah, and I remember like when we first met you, it was funny because like we had our first gig, you know, and I think you took second to our third and first to our second, and it was this whole thing all the time. And it was always just one upping us, you know. There's always that, oh man, this is the best rib ever. I can't wait. And second place ribs, Salt City Barbecue, first place Quicker Pigs, or whatever it may be. And it was so infuriating. I was like, always just wanted to beat you. I didn't really care. Like they could have said grand champion. I'm like, wait, hold on. We beat Crooked Pigs, you know, and that's all that really mattered at the time. And it was really funny because something you guys got to know about Matt is he is Nat. So what we would do would be cooking, and you know, right around turning times, guess who would roll around on his little scooter? Hey guys, what's going on? Like getting all in our business, and his brother's back there holding down the fort while he's going around like trying to rattle us and, you know, talk to us and check things out and make us uncomfortable and make fun of us and ask why we're doing this. And it was a fun time. It was really cool, but it was always like my whole motivation was to just beat you guys. You know, that was all we ever wanted to do. That was our whole focus. Like a lot of people are like, oh, let's win a comp. Right? No, I want blood. I want Crooked Pigs. I want that so bad.
You know, I learned that from Jason Stuckey. He used to, between turn-ins, he and Kyle used to cruise around on these big cruiser bikes, drinking beers with a boombox between KCBS 30-minute turn-ins. They've got the wherewithal to cruise around and drink beer, and everybody's. I just remember going, how in the hell are these guys that put together that they can cruise around and drink beer and make fun of us? And that just goes to show what I didn't understand. I mean, I think, and so then I just knew that if I was going to be successful, I was going to be in a place where I could sit down or cruise around for 15 minutes between turn-ins, because it's all together, man. And maybe not every time, but if things are going your way, you're not in a flurry of, meat and shit thrown around between turn-ins. Your stuff's done. It's held. It's in the Cambro. It's ready to go. Yeah.
What's that like?
Well, it's not that way every time still, but when it goes well, man, I got my stuff sliced and laid out and pretty much ready to go into the box. 2 turn-ins ahead, I think.
Yeah, and you guys put a lot of work into your boxes, by the way. That's something that I'm absolutely awful at, and you've taught me quite a bit. And it's funny because I've worked with you. We've worked together. We've done comps with each other, and I've tried to get all I can out of you. I'm just not that guy, so I still suck at them. But you guys need to go to Crooked Pigs like at their Instagram or the Facebook or whatever, mostly Instagram.
Or the
YouTube as well, and just look at those boxes. And I promise you, I would love it. Just send me a better picture of a box by anyone in the entire
They're out
world.
there. They're out there. Chicken Fried Nelsie are putting down some mean stuff, man.
They're doing pretty good. But your boxes were legendary. It was crazy.
To be honest, I think I've felt like they're falling off a little. And I'm working on that. I think that I don't know. I've tried to simplify things a little bit. The pork is still throwing me for a loop in terms of what layout to do. Because, I've been singing this No Burn Ends tune for a while. And I think the circuit's kind of moving back to the burn ends a little, although I'm still not convinced that a person should cook them. But I feel like I'm taking my own advice that if you're only putting your, one piece of meat in that box, then, and you think that's a better strategy, then why am I putting 3 or 4 different pieces of pork in that box? So I've started doing less, and I've been trying the money muscle only thing, which was popular back east for a while, but it's just kind of started catching on in the West. And I don't know. I don't think the box looks as good when there's not 3 or 4 pieces of meat in that box, or different cuts in that box.
No, I agree. I always liked doing like the money muscle medallions. I liked throwing chunks in there. I like throwing like some like longer kind of like strings.
Yeah, like the bacon or the whatever
like
people call it.
Yeah, pulling some tubes and throwing that. And I mean, I think it's visually more pleasing when you open it than
but the question is still, is any of that better than your money muscle medallions? Now, I don't know that it is.
And it's a solid question.
And so then why are you putting it in? Is it just for the appearance points, which aren't that much? And so I go back and forth on that. And I do like my box way better when I've got those. You can just do so much more with it. I used to think the pork box was really just, I mean, it's just it's a blank canvas, and that is the artistic one, I think. I mean, it's intuitive how to lay chicken in, it's intuitive how to lay ribs in and brisket slices, but you really have a lot of creativity options with the pork. But if you're cooking nothing but money medallion slices or money muscle medallions, there's just not a lot to do. There's, although there are some guys out there who do some pretty good shingle work and whatnot, but there aren't that many options. So I don't know. I don't know what the magic recipe is. I don't know that there is one. I think that you got to do what kind of works for you. And sometimes, I've always thought it would be interesting for somebody to set up a competition and let everybody have 2 boxes for each category and try to turn in 2 identical boxes and turn them in and just see how that shakes out. They're going to get different tables just so everybody can really have it impressed upon them. How much, how much is outside your control with these contests? Because there is a lot. I think too many new teams and even old teams get frustrated when the chips don't fall the way they'd like them to, because it just doesn't sometimes. And you see, look at some of these teams that just are winning comp after comp after comp. And I mean, that is their chops, man. But they're good cooks, man. And the cream rises to the top for sure. And I'm not knocking, I'm not taking anything away from these guys who deserve that, but they lose a lot too. Like, a guy like LC's out on the circuit, cooking, I don't know, 50 comps a year, and he can get 7 wins in a year. I mean, that's a great season, but that's not winning every time out. But everybody who watches him on Instagram gets the impression that he's winning every comp that he cooks. He's not, man. And he gets frustrated like the rest of us, I'm sure. And so and that goes the same for Brad and Tim and all the superstars out there. And when you're cooking 8 or 10 comps a year and you get one GC, it might start to seem like those guys are at another level, and they may be to some degree, but I mean, it's
Absolutely.
not that far off, you know?
Yeah.
No, that's been something we've consistently heard on the show that since we started it this year, kind of across the group of people we've had on the show that are actively doing like a pretty heavy comp schedule at this point, is that they do kind of feel like a lot of the governing bodies that we see them competing in, it kind of stagnates a lot of the creativity, and they feel like they're kind of being forced into one presentation and one style of cooking, where they would like to see creativity, I guess, rewarded more than the nature of the competition seems to.
But it won't. That's the worst part
Sure.
about it all. You try something new, you're gonna be eaten alive. You know, that's
You're
the hard
going
part.
big or going home.
Look at Smitty. Look at Smitty going on all these comps. I mean, I got the pleasure of trying one of Smitty's wings, wing flats that he cooks, and I mean, it was the best wing I ever ate. And I've set to trying to master those, and I've got pretty good wings now, but not quite his. But he turns those in at comps. I think he's just coming off a perfect score at his last one in Vegas. But the problem with that creativity is, yeah, you might get lucky, and you might get some judges who all agree with you, but it's all or nothing on that, man. It's either he's getting perfect scores or he's getting hammered a lot.
Yeah.
And so it takes a set of nuts, man, to think outside the box and try the new things. And you got to give him props for doing that. And it pays off a lot of times, but you're never going to just get middle of the road scores thinking outside the box. You're either going to get hammered or you're going to get rewarded, I think.
Yeah. And it's funny because I go as a judge, as someone who's judged a lot now. I feel like that's all I do these days is, you know, I look at, like, just for appearance, for example, it's a big deal. I try to downplay it, and I still don't think it's the all. I mean, I think if you put a good box together that looks aesthetically pleasing, you're going to get a 9. And I think most of the time, what I think changes, and I'm convinced of this, is that if you do something like Matt's doing, where it's just like, oh my God, I think the food just tastes better. You know, like, even if it doesn't, even if someone was just to hand you that same chicken thigh from just out of nowhere, you'd eat it like, oh, this is really good. But when you see it and that whole presentation, you're just like, wow, this is cool. I think it helps that just a little, because like I always said, like, when you're judging, you look, and then you have 0.1 second to get that 9. That's where your 9 comes, is that 0.1 second
Right.
of everything. When you bite into it, that's where your 9 comes. If you were to open a box and then you're lost, you're done. If you were to take a bite and it was like even though the 3 seconds later it's like, oh, this is really good, you've already lost your 9. And so it's I think it's a very good strategy that way. And I still won't try hard to do my boxes. That's not something I am interested in doing in any shape, way. I hate it. I wish we could just do like they do in Texas and go, here's my aluminum foil and there's my chicken. You know, like, I love it. But it is a KCBS thing. It won't go away. And I think you should at least, you know, I think more people are trying really hard, and I think that's cool. I think it helps this much. But
I definitely think you're right about the presentation being more than just the numeric score in the appearance category. I do think there is some bleed over, and I think that maybe having multiple pieces in a box also has some carryover into the other categories, aside from just appearance, because it is kind of a psychological game. It's, I mean, I don't know. I think that a judge, sometimes they might tell you straight to their face that they don't care how many pieces of meat you have in the box, and that your appearance doesn't matter when they're scoring the other 2 categories. But that doesn't mean it doesn't still. And I think it does. I think it's that they don't understand that it is. They don't realize they're doing it, you know?
Yeah. It's super important. And I don't think, I mean, judges want to be nice, and I think most judges are trying really hard to give you the benefit of the doubt. But the human subconscious is a very powerful thing.
Totally.
People need to understand.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
and
Sure.
and boxes I think are a big part of it, and I think that's great. But
to that issue, that point that the human subconscious is an important thing, I think it is important as a cook to recognize that too, and realize that your confirmation bias is always at play here, and it is really hard to be completely honest with yourself about how your cook is. One way to realize this is to take a picture of your box before you turn it in and look at the picture. And I think we've talked about this before. And I mean, you just see things that you didn't see when you're looking at it with your eyes, when you look at it on the picture. But it's also the same way when you taste your food, man. And I don't know if anybody's ever bought a new car and thought that it was unique, and then you realize that everybody's driving one just like it. You see all these all over town. Road. Yeah, every day, everywhere you go, you see one just like yours. It's that sort of thing. It's like it, or people value what they have more than what they want. It's you want to get a good deal on what you're buying and get a premium for what you're selling. It's all the human psyche, and it's really difficult to be honest with yourself. But if you want to be successful in this, I think that being honest with yourself is the first step in improving. I mean, that goes without saying, I think, in everything in the human experience, but it's really hard in this business, in this sport, to be honest about how good the stuff is you're putting out. And I still struggle with that. I still try to tell myself it's good when it's not. And that doesn't get you anywhere, man. That's just a waste of money and time. And you'll find yourself picking up the score sheet and just bitching the whole way home. And you get a chip on your shoulder pretty quick, and you're mad, and you think you're getting screwed. You're not getting screwed. I mean, sometimes, but if you're doing enough comps, you're getting what you deserve, and you don't deserve any better if you're not scoring better over time. One or two comps here or there. Yeah, you can get screwed for sure in this. There's definitely that element of this, the luck element, just like any sport, but it is pretty consistently giving people what they deserve, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's the reason why certain people are at the top all the time,
Yep.
So it is what it is. It's like the Rounders, if you ever seen the movie Rounders with poker, they're talking about
great movie.
The World Series of Poker. There's a reason why the same people go to the final table every year,
Right.
The consistency of it all. It's what they do right all the time, and it works.
But from an outsider's perspective, it seems like it's lucky.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's gambling, right? It seems like there's a big luck element.
Yeah, what are they, the luckiest people in the world? The quote from the Rounders,
Right. Well, I mean, right. A guy could say that about some of these guys that have won these big comps more than once,
Yeah,
for sure.
But it's not. It's
no, of course. I mean, is luck not a factor?
It absolutely is.
It is, but is it the factor?
Well, I mean, you make your own luck if you cook enough. If you cook
Right.
enough and you try hard, you make your own luck. And to win the jack, does it take some luck? Absolutely. But luck, you can't win it on luck alone. That's for sure.
No.
So,
and then these guys traveling all over the place, and just winning here and there in Vegas, which I've struggled with, in Vegas and Nevada and Arizona. And then you have Brad and Tim coming down GC and RGC in the thing, and they're, they have their profiles, and they just kind of work everywhere, and they just are universally good. They're just, I don't know what they do that makes them so good, but they do it, it's all about that. So, it's about consistency and getting good. And obviously they cook every single day for their whole lives. So that's important, but
it's about pulling those meats off at the right time and having the right texture. I mean, I think above everything else, it's a texture game. Tenderness, texture game, depending on what sanctioning body you're cooking. But I think that's the most important thing. And anybody who's cooking on the circuit just about can nail their ribs or their brisket, but nailing all four of them on any given day is hard. And I think that is really what cooking more often gets you, is the ability to get all four of those meats lined up the same day. That's the hard part. The hard part, I mean, it's really hard to not have one of those fall below the others if you're being truly honest with yourself. That's what I think you get when you're Brad and Tim. And I mean, I'm throwing their names out a lot, but there's a million guys out there cooking every week. I just think that those are some of the guys that come off the top of my head. But man, there's a lot of guys doing this that are cooking 50 comps a week and are just deadly out there or 50 comps a year because they cook so often. They're deadly, man. They don't screw up anymore.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
or if they do, you don't know about it.
Yeah, or to that point. That's a good thing. It's a good point. Yeah, like recovering from your screw ups, because a lot of times, I mean, there are things that happen in every cook, or things that are unexpected, or just that intangible. And rolling with the punches is another thing you learn. If you're going to a comp or to a class, excuse me, and you're getting a timeline, and that can work in an ideal set of circumstances. But one thing that you can't get from a class that you can get from cooking week in and week out is the ability to recover from the unexpected and to roll with the punches when when I think I heard Tim tell a story on a podcast or something about a time when his brisket came out of the camera. It was just tight and he knew it needed to go back on, and he ripped the grates out of his drum and put a grate down on top of the firebox and put his sliced brisket in there in a pan with jus and let it rip for 10 minutes right before turn in, and got those slices cooked where they needed to be. And that's the kind of thing, most guys are either just going to be frustrated because their brisket's not done and throw it in anyway, or try to slice it too thin, or who knows,
turn in a Nike sole.
Right. And just know the comp's lost for them and try to win the other categories. But recovering like that, and I've had several different, experiences like that where I'm able to come back from something. I don't know if you'll recall, Rusty, we did that SCA comp down at ThermoWorks that one time, and I just used something I'd done in a barbecue comp once before. I got doing something else and let my steak go too far, and it was overcooked, and I not bad, but it was past where it needed to be, and I yanked it off and threw it on ice, man, in a cooler, stuck it in a Ziploc bag, threw it on ice, and I think I got a second steak call, which really is a crapshoot, if you want my opinion. But
right.
but that's the kind of thing I've definitely, instead of venting my brisket, throw it straight in the Cambro, I've thrown it in my freezer before and vented it there and let it sit for a minute till it was back to room temp before I threw it in the Cambro, because I thought it'd gone a little too far. And that's there's different things you can do like that and also like giving yourself enough time before turn-ins to open your Cambro and start slicing into that, figure out where you are, because it's one thing knowing how to recover from the unexpected or the unintentional, but it's another giving yourself enough time to do it. So you can't throw a brisket back on for 10 minutes right on your firebox unless you got 10 minutes to do it. So figuring out how to be in a place where you know what you need to do with enough time to do it is also hard.
Yeah, that's what Darren Worth always says when you listen to him. He's like, it's more about how you react to things, and you fix it. It's all about fixing. That's what barbecue is. It's consistency, obviously, but then the ability to fix it when it's broke and know how to do it, or whatever. And that just comes with experience. That's
and Darren's got gobs of experience. He came out we had a comp in Idaho this year, still 5 hours from my house, but he came out and cooked on one drum, and we RGC'd it and he GC'd it, and he still kicked my ass on one drum, man. That son of a bitch. He's a good cook, I'll tell you what.
It's crazy.
So, yeah, it's a lot, man.
Thing or two.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all about that adjusting period, and that just comes like with a lot of cook and knowledge, and then probably that's where it all comes from. That's that added element that most people don't have, so they're able to adjust and overcome.
I still don't have enough of it, man. There's just not enough comps close to me. I'm not spending $500,000 a year to cook every year. So, it's hard. I mean, it feels like those guys have a better opportunity back in the Midwest who can cook every weekend. And so it gets a little frustrating for sure, but there's a lot you can do. You can cook at home a lot. It's still hard to simulate a comp, but you can cook at home a lot. You can talk about it a lot. You can think about it. I mean, I really do think that just going through a cook and a timeline in your head, I'll sit and do that for an hour while before a comp if I haven't cooked in a while, just to make sure I'm packing everything and make sure I'm thinking through what my game plan is. It's kind of like the sports psychologists have the superstars thinking through their gameplay think it's a lot like that too. If you don't have the opportunity to actually practice.
And are you still kind of changing things on the fly? I mean, I remember I was trying to be as structured as possible. And then, when we cook with you or we talk to you about it, like, hey, I decided to do this today and this and that. And I'm going to try this and do this and all that kind of stuff. Is that something you still do?
Yeah. Yes and no. I struggle with that a little bit. I mean, I'm constantly finding, and it didn't used to be this way. I'm constantly finding new rubs that I'm impressed with and that are hitting my palate in a way I like. And I mean, I just don't think that to be honest with you, I think that I could be as successful showing up to a Walmart and picking up all the stuff I need for a comp there before. There's so much good stuff on the shelf now. And I don't know. I used to talk about like magic bullet rubs sort of thing, like there's some secret rub or sauce people are using. There isn't, man. I think you could be successful with any of it. And so then you might ask, well, why am I changing things on the fly? But it's just because I'm finding new things I kind of like and they're striking my palate in a way that and I want to see. I mean, I also feel like if you're not improving in this game, you're getting worse. You're either going forward or backward. There's no treading water in competition barbecue. I mean, you might for a season or two, but that's it. And you do see a lot of these people. I mean, Darren's a perfect example. Hadn't been cooking a whole lot in a while and came back on the circuit and was struggling a little. And he had to get it back together. I mean, he certainly has. But there's been several people who've done that. And
no, I mean, that's a great point. Which one of the top 10 is not still evolving?
None. I don't think any. And if they are, if they're not evolving, they're devolving. And that's and so I like to try new things. And I mean, if stuff's hitting, like if I'm coming off a perfect score weekend, I'm going to cook the same thing I cooked last weekend. But if I'm not, kicking ass with the category, I don't think there's any reason not to maybe mix it up a little. And that's not to say throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, I'm doing the same program.
No, absolutely not. But like every person we've had on this show that has a product on a shelf right now has another product coming out at some point in the future that they've talked about on the show, which tells me that they're still adapting. They're still evolving.
Sure.
They're still trying new things. So if you're not, they are. Yep. So what are you doing?
I also think to that though, I think right now if you grabbed a bottle of Cimarron Docks and Smoking Guns Hot and went out there with some Blues Hog, you just wipe the floor with some people, I think basics still works too.
Absolutely. No, I mean, Cimarron Dock is that I've probably got 3 pounds of it in that garage back there.
Right. Probably taking people back to their childhood, like, oh, I remember my first barbecue competition. It's taking me back. But
that is fantastic.
Yeah, it is hard to beat. I think that, and when I find myself, again, the comment I made about the moving target in the dark, when I find myself not as successful as I had been for a minute in a particular category, instead of trying to reinvent or whatever, I just go back to, I just kind of come home to what I had been successful with and kind of come off the experimental stuff and the new things and just come back to the Cimarron Docks and Smoking Guns Hot or the Eat barbecue rubs. I think are really similar to those. And I do that. And I kind of just come back to my basic sauce profile and then start cooking that and start tweaking again from there, because you don't know which direction you're off from that target. And so I think you come back to where you knew you were on in the past and you can work from there and try again. I think to be honest with you, the most successful I've been at contests, the most wins I've had have been when I hadn't cooked in a minute. I come back and kind of start again from home base, and cook what I used to cook and stop. And as the season kind of meanders on, I kind of meander away a little from what really works. And I'm not sure why, and maybe it's just self-discipline and, my personal flaws, but I think that I find that the more often I'm cooking throughout the season, the less time I have to think about it, the more I'm overthinking it. And those things sound mutually exclusive, but I don't think they are. And so, I think it's important to realize that it isn't really, I mean, to some degree it is a flavor game, but I mean, It's really about nailing that cook and just using quality products that aren't offensive. And I think there's a lot of those.
Yeah, I think it's funny because like the SCA progression is that one of the only videos at the time besides Cosmos was Malcolm Reed's little gig that he had with his steak, and he was using his 2 rubs, and that was it. And it was very basic. It was very easy. And everyone who became an SCA superstar
cooked that.
Most everyone cooked that and won with it. Mm-hmm. And I'm convinced now that it's evolved to so many different things. I'll bet you if you went back to that recipe and just threw that down, I mean, you would kill it, you know. And I think we do overthink things. I do think evolving is a key. You have to. I just think that over evolving is harmful. And I think people overthink a lot. You know, you see a lot of these barbecue guys going back to basics, you know, talking about, you know, Sterling Smith, you know, and Smitty, and he goes back to basics, you know, and he tries to dial it back a little bit. And I think there's a little bit, like you said, you get going on it, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, you know what? I'm going to chop it back down and go here. And, you know,
well, it's being honest with yourself. Yeah. It's being honest with yourself. It's really hard to be. It's hard to go, I got my ass kicked because I don't know how to cook, or I'm not cooking well enough. It's way easier to go, there's got to be some other flavor profile out there that I don't know about. And because it's just hard. And so that's what people do. It's just much easier to go try to buy a new $7 or $8 silver bullet than it is to go, I just need to go home and cook some barbecue and get that cook right every time. And that's and so I'm as guilty of that as anybody else.
Yeah, unfortunately, most people blame the judges and everyone else, you know. Couldn't be them. Hell no, it couldn't be them. But the rare few that go, you know what, maybe I cook crappy, you know, that then they just need to go back and, you know, dial it in and rethink it, you know. And, you know, I think it's not a complicated thing. It's funny, you know, we start from the ground as an evolution of barbecue, and now we're smoking all these crazy things, you know, like now we have all these air this and convection that and this and that. And it's funny because then when you try the best food, it comes from the ground, you know. It's funny.
No, I don't blame a judge unless I see like a 7.
A 7.
They're like, fuck you.
No. Come out west and start getting some 4s. Then you can blame the judges.
Now.
Yeah, 4s and 5s.
It wasn't that bad. Man, y'all's judges are mean.
Well, it's the same as anything else. It's the same as cooking when they don't judge that often. And then I think, I don't know if you guys got time to talk about the judging thing a little bit, but I am a little frustrated because I think that KCBS kind of, there's the written rule and there's like the culture. And sure. I think that, you know, like to your point, a 7 can ruin someone's weekend, can cause them to have wasted every dollar they spent and all their time. But it doesn't really say that in the rules. And so it takes judging to realize that culturally that's not that's just not a good score. But when you tell somebody on a scale of 1 to 9, a 7 sounds pretty good. And so some of these judges, I think, are just guilty of doing what they're told, and they just haven't realized that that's not what it takes to win a contest, and they don't know it, I think. So I don't know. I think there's some of that going on out here, and probably not as much, you know, out in the Midwest and East Coast because the judges get more experience.
Yeah, because there's a comp every day. There's comp right now, right? I think there's a comp happening right now, right by you, Houston. I think probably within the mile of you. In fact, I think your neighbors are having one right now. I think there's 40 teams.
It's in your own backyard, isn't it?
No, and I do think that's interesting when I talk to you guys that like cook in the Mountain West or like, you know, cook in some of the markets that aren't quite so saturated with competitions. Is that, yeah, I mean, you know, like you're gonna have, like in Alabama, there is a backyard comp with 40 teams. Probably every weekend in between like March and you know, the end of the season. And so there is a lot of opportunity, but at the same time, I mean, you still run into the exact same issues. It just is kind of exacerbated over like a heavier packed season.
Yeah, and that would be nice. I would spend a lot more money, but you know, it's kind of nice to think about, you know, going like, hell yeah, I can cook every weekend, but then like, wow, then I wouldn't be able to pay bills and, have a house, and my wife would leave me. It's a lot.
No,
It's a lot
for
to think
sure.
about.
I think like this was my heaviest season that I've done to date with like I think 12, and I don't think I drove more than Atlanta was the furthest at 4 hours away from me.
Yeah. Dang.
Good grief. That would be a dream.
That'd be something.
Oh, easily 80% of them were inside of 2 hours.
Good grief.
Okay.
I used to have one in my backyard in Boise, but that was nice, but
that was a good one too.
No longer.
Is what it is. And it sucks, but it is. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully they can get back on track. That will be a whole conversation. I think that's what people need to be talking about, is how to get that back on track. And we need to get that in focus and make some plans. Hopefully KCBS can guide the ship, but who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, we will.
But it's not happening now. I think time flew, bro.
No joke.
Sorry, I was yapping a lot.
No, that was crazy. I was like looking down the clock.
You are an attorney, and I cannot tell you how happy I am to also have a fellow legal eagle that also does barbecue on the show.
Hold up. So let me get this straight. Wait a second. Are you a lawyer, Houston?
Yes.
What the fuck? Okay.
Yeah.
And you cycled?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We're kind of like the same person.
Yeah, you are.
In fact, in our spare time on the show, I made this Venn diagram, which is literally just like me and Matt as the only overlap in between bike and barbecue.
I'll bet you voted for Kamala Harris, just like Rusty.
So actually, I did cast one.
Listen, that's kind of, think about this, how crazy that is. Lawyers who rode bicycles who do barbecue. That's kind of serendipitous, if you ask me.
No, it's like the only overlap I've ever had.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I've never met anybody on the barbecue circuit who cycled, that's for sure. And maybe one, but never anybody who does both. That's crazy.
Oh, yeah, no, we're in rare air for me right now.
Well, that's fun. That's fun. But I hate to wrap it up, but we have to. Do the thing. Houston, do your questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So Matt, one of the show's sponsors is Brothers Barbecue Supply. And so we are going to ask you a couple questions on the Brothers Q Barbecue Supply lightning round. And so without further ado, I will get into it.
Bang, bang. Let's do it.
Favorite thing to cook at home?
Ribs.
Nice. Well, so then that's going to make the next category not that interesting. Favorite category to cook in a comp?
Brisket.
Oh, okay.
For sure.
That's
the big category, man. That's for all the marbles, man. It's all the bragging rights.
Nice. One thing you always have in your trailer, and it can't be your Thermapen.
Shit paper.
It's handy.
Tank drop-ins. I don't know.
All right. Walk-up song for awards.
Oh, that's easy. Right above it.
Oh, boy, that's a good one.
That we actually walk to brisket turning with that and a little speaker every time for turning.
Oh yeah. All right. One thing you know now that you wish you did at the start of doing comps.
Boy, there's so many things. I would just go back to take a class.
Yeah, classes.
I don't know. I mean, there's so many things. Yeah, I could answer that in a million ways, but I guess it's a rapid fire question. So take a class.
Sure. And I know that you guys have a first round bye coming up, but who you think you're playing? And let me get a prediction.
Let's see. I have to look at the bracket again. I can't remember. It's
you got SMU and Penn State.
Yeah, Penn State. You're right. Gosh, I don't know. I don't know that it matters.
Confidence, I like it.
Well, I don't know that it's that, but I just think they kind of play their game, and I don't know. We'll see. I'm just hoping that Genty is like I said before off air. He's got a chip on his shoulder and he's ready to steamroll some people because he got I think he got screwed on that Heisman deal, and I think that'll play well into his hand. And boy, if you look at some of the Heisman winners in the past, they don't do so well in the NFL. So maybe he's ready.
No, but I agree. If I think if it doesn't matter who y'all got, if Genty's on, I got Boise by freaking plenty.
Yeah, he'll have to have a good game, and it really does. We do need to have a good passing game, I think, to set him up. But those things work synergistically, so we'll see
for sure.
Well,
that's all I got in the Brother Q Barbecue Supply Lightning Round.
Crazy. So Matt, always a pleasure, my man.
Thank you, guys.
We could have it went on for 100 years on this one, and
I would too.
Touched the way you got into your meat, which is your especially your brisket cooks. Everything you do is really good, and it's the best barbecue I've had on the competition state. I always say that if you were to cook more, you'd probably be one of those guys. We talked about earlier, but hopefully we can get you back on next time and talk more shop, because people need to know how you do your stuff. Because
happy to do it.
And you've taught me a ton. Like, I've learned so much from you, and
so goes both ways, Rusty. I've learned a lot from you too.
And with that, man, we'll put you in the green room and we'll talk to you in a little bit.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks.
All right.
Awesome.
That's all, folks.